So going back to the technology underneath these models, one analogy that I think of is, and we're in San Francisco. I'm amazed by how many Waymos pass by me every day. I'm seeing Amazon's Zoox starting to come out. I think they have like a self-driving one now in Soma as of a couple of weeks ago. And I think one of the sort of questions for autonomous driving, for example, is to what extent can you rely on these machine learning models, right? There's the long tail of sort of these things that might happen that don't happen often in maybe the training sets that these models are trained on, that ultimately are still very important to account for, right? That plastic bag sort of like floating in the wind that might look like a rock when you're driving down the highway, right? What do you do in that situation? One of the sort of other methods of approaching sort of AI is more symbolic AI or rules-based AI, which doesn't just sort of rely as much on large data sets and sort of like prediction, but more kind of hard-coded rules. How do you think about that tension when it relates to the work that you are trying to automate and sort of make smarter in the kind of wet lab scenario?
Yeah, there are definitely like trade-offs in that regard. The Waymo example is a very good example. You don't want to have a black box driving your Waymo and, like driving you into the wall and you ask, hey, why did it do it? And it can't answer, it can give you a reason. While if you have a rule-based approach, you can say, oh, because this happened, like I turned right and I put you in the wall. But basically, we're trying to like mix and combine the flexibility of like probabilistic models with the robustness and the capability to explain the decisions of rule-based systems. The way we use AI to do this is that in the first place, we have AI parsing the information or parameters that are required in the rules-based. So you have the scientist speak to the AI agent in natural language, and the AI's role is to extract this information and fill it and then like ship it to the rule-based systems. So you can like explain, oh, we did this because you gave us this information. The other approach is to have the AI augment the set of rules that you're using in your rules-based system. And so we're doing both. You get the AI basically to write new rules based on its knowledge of the literature and the circumstances of the experiment to augment the set of rules that you already had. So that later down the line, the robot can still explain why it did like this or that like setup of the experiment.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is kind of this hybrid approach between those two. What happens with, one example somebody in lab automation gave me recently was, if you have somebody who's got a protocol and it says, mix until cloudy, right? What does cloudy mean, right? My cloudy might be different than yours. So let's say a scientist says that. How do you handle that kind of potentially vague instruction?
It's a very good question. This is the core of what we're doing. And we very often use the analogy of the peanut butter jelly sandwich. I don't know if you've ever heard of that analogy. It's a very common in computer science, like professors use it. I recently found a video on YouTube of a dad doing this to like his kids, basically driving them crazy. Like the goal is to like tell the person, hey, can you give me a list of instructions to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich? And it sounds very simple, right? I was going to like open like the jar, like take the jelly, put it on the bread, and that's it. You have your peanut butter jelly, right? But this, the goal is to like do everything you can to like fail that peanut butter jelly. So you see the dad like taking the list of instructions written by the kid and say, oh, put the jelly on the sandwich. Okay, it's gonna put like on the corner of like all around the edge of the bread. You're gonna
like it's on the sandwich.
It's on the sandwich. Yeah. It was like ambiguous. How do you get rid of ambiguous information, ambiguous instruction? And that's where the feedback is very, very important here. You can have the LLM like do a first draft of the program based on like the scientist's instructions, but then you need to show the scientist what this is going to look like to make sure that they can see, oh, I gave bad instructions for my peanut butter jelly. And this is also something that you can check not only with the scientist's direct feedback, but also with the LLM own knowledge. Like if the scientist says, oh, like I want to do like a qPCR, the LLM agent can have a list of rules that you've already predefined, or it can also look up like on its own like database, like using a RAG or searching on the web and coming up with rules and making sure that what it generated fits that list of rules. Those are like ways to make sure that this problem of ambiguous instructions is addressed. But that's definitely like the core of what we're doing.